I will say this. I'm happy with what I saw for some select Democrats over the weekend. I'm going to start with Khanna, who I think is a good dude, very intelligent. So he did a few town halls over the weekend, and I think Ro is very intelligent, very well spoken. I think he's really good. And he went out to a district in California that was very red, and I just felt like he made so many great points in his speech. Have a listen to this.
Look, there's some people in my party who think we should just talk about the price of eggs and the price of groceries and inflation, and we should. But you know what I think really moves people in this country? When you talk about our values. We cannot throw the trans community under the bus. We cannot throw immigrants under the bus. We cannot be afraid to stand up for due process, even if it's politically not expedient. If they come after the trans community today, they're going to come after immigrants tomorrow. They're going to come after the LGBTQ community next, and then women and the black community and all of us.
So I agree with that. And as I've said plenty of times, and I'll say again, the messaging needs to improve with Democrats. And I think Khanna has done a good job with that, and he's right. And I think they just need to keep hitting that home. You know, he did multiple town halls in California over the weekend, and they were packed. And as I said, some of them were in red districts. So good job by Khanna. I thought he did a really good job. And while this was all going on, Jasmine Crockett doing, of course, what she does best, and going after Pam Bondi. And it's interesting because Pam Bondi today lied once again in a press conference like 30 minutes ago. She made the claim that the people of Greenland want them there. No, they don't. Everybody within the government and pretty much every public official in Greenland has said they don't want them coming to Greenland. But yet Pam Bondi was lying about that. And listen, Jasmine Crockett just absolutely tearing her and ripping her a new one. Have a listen to her over the weekend.
Want to say that I have never promoted violence whatsoever, yet I've also never made excuse for those violent actors such as the ones on January 6th. So Pam Bondi, if you have an issue with terrorism, maybe you should talk to your boss about locking back up those guys that he let out that participated in January 6th.
Completely agree. Now, I've made that same case that if you think these people that lit Tesla cars on fire are domestic terrorists, then maybe you shouldn't call people who beat cops on January 6 patriots. What about the guy who tased a bunch of peaceful protesters over the weekend that was a MAGA supporter? Do you hear Pam Bondi calling him a domestic terrorist? No, of course not. Because if you're a Donald Trump supporter, somehow you're a patriot no matter what law you break. You can assault police officers, doesn't matter. You can tase, innocent, peaceful protesters. But if you key a Tesla car, which, by the way, I don't condone, but if you key a Tesla car, somehow that makes you some sort of domestic terrorist. It is absolute BS. It's nonsense. And it's why I always call these MAGA morons on the far right hypocrites at a minimum. Now, another guy over the weekend that held some town halls, Eric Swalwell. Sometimes I agree with him. Sometimes I disagree with him. But I do think Eric Swalwell did a great job over the weekend when he started talking about, quote, the season of democracy. Listen to what he had to say over the weekend to some of his constituents.
And a college coach would always tell me, every time we started a season, think about what you want the last game and the last moment of that game to feel like. And right now, for our democracy, we know what it felt like in November. So as we start this season of democracy that'll take us to November 4, 2026, today is about you thinking about what do you want that day to look like. To me, it's a day of celebration. It's a day of accountability. It's a day of redemption for our democracy. It's a day where we cut our time in hell in half by winning the midterm.
Now, I agree with that, and that's what the Democrats need to focus on now. They need to focus on the midterms. They need to turn out. They need to do what Khanna was doing. They need to do what Jasmine Crockett is doing, and you need to do what Ossoff is doing. Listen, I disagree with him with the way he voted on this GOP spending bill. However, he is an extremely intelligent guy And he is a guy that speaks truth to facts to, I guess, fiction, for lack of a better term. And here is him, again, speaking to some of his constituents and talking about this ridiculous $5 million gold card that the Trump administration is offering to people that come into this country. It's ridiculous. And he starts talking about Don Jr. And, this is the way Democrats need to start talking across the board. Have a listen to this.
And then on top of the chaos, you have the corruption. It was just reported that dinner with the president at Mar-a-Lago is on sale for just $5 million. And really, the whole royal family is cashing in. Don Jr. is setting up a new business empire. Jared's investment firm got $2 billion from the Saudi royal family. Like, Hunter Biden should have been more ambitious.
That's actually really funny. And true at the same time. You notice how all these MAGA Republicans have their pantyhose in a bind because Hunter Biden, who never worked in the Joe Biden administration, was making $50,000 a month off of Burisma, but you never hear them talk about Jared Kushner receiving $2.1 billion from the Saudis. You'll never hear them talking about Ivanka Trump making over $600 million in Chinese trademarks from China. You'll never hear them talking about people spending 7 figures to pray with Donald Trump or $5 million to have a dinner with Donald Trump. They'll never seem to complain about that. They'll never seem to have a problem with that. But let's still talk about Hunter Biden's paintings, and let's talk about Hunter Biden making $50,000 a month from Burisma. Again, there's some of the biggest hypocrites and clowns that this entire country has to offer. Now, as you know, Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez have been on their tour fighting an oligarchy. And they recently had one of those stops in Vegas, and they've been making the rounds. They were in Arizona over the weekend. We'll get to AOC in a moment. But I think Bernie Sanders really resonates with a lot of Americans when he starts talking about Donald Trump's foreign policy, and specifically when it comes to Gaza. This is what he had to say in Arizona over the weekend.
45,000 people are dead there. 100,000+ are wounded, mostly women and children. Netanyahu government should not get another nickel of military weaponry from the United States. And if you can believe, as bad as all of that is, what they now want to do is force the 2 million people out of Gaza and build some playground for the billionaire class. Unbelievable.
These are crowds of like 15,000 plus that have been showing up at these events. So that's certainly a good sign for Democrats. As far as what Bernie Sanders was just talking about, he certainly has a very good point. He talked about a lot of important issues, one of them being the situation with the Israel-Palestinian conflict, which I think you could make the argument is worse off today than it was on day one of Donald Trump's administration. He also said the war would be over in 24 hours in Ukraine. There were more airstrikes over the weekend because Putin does not want peace. More innocent children and women have died, and Vladimir Putin does not want peace. It was Zelensky who offered to sign a ceasefire, and it is this man, Vladimir Putin, who refuses to do so and continues to kill innocent people. But it's funny, Donald Trump always says that Putin wants peace. If he wants peace, then why is he throwing out bombs to innocent civilians? You'll never hear him talk about that. And then when he's asked 24 hours, right? When he's asked, why did you say that the war would be over in 24 hours? His response is, well, I was just being sarcastic. Just like when he was asked the day after, why did you talk about injecting yourself with disinfectant? His response, oh, I was just joking. No, the real answer is I lied, and my idiot, low IQ voters and supporters believe me when I say those things. Yeah, it's been 2 months. The war's still going on. No close to a resolution there or even a ceasefire. Now, listen, I was asked this question this morning on Piers Morgan about AOC, that she's some sort of extremist and she's bad for the Democratic Party. I completely disagree. Now, I'm not saying that AOC should run for president. In fact, I've never said that. I don't think that would be a good idea, but she is certainly a rising star in the party. And I've talked a lot about the trans issue, and I disagree with some Democrats on this issue. No, I don't think that transgenders should be playing in sports with people who are born women. However, it's not a top 5 issue. It's not a top 10 issue. And that's the point that AOC was trying to make here, that Republicans seem to be obsessed about this story and obsessed about transgenders. But why does it have to be put on the House floor? Talk to the NCAA about that. Listen to what AOC had to say about this very issue.
And they will throw out every label and judgment and cultural debate in the book to keep us distracted, folks. This is what the focus on trans kids is all about. Come on, 1% of the entire population. If people want to have conversations about that, take it to the NCAA. It doesn't need to be on the floor of the United States Congress. We need to be taxing the rich on the floor of the United States Congress. We need to be establishing guaranteed health care on the floor of the United States Congress, not erasing American history on the floor of the United States Congress. We need to be passing a living wage on the floor of the United States Congress.
I agree. Very valid point. No matter what your opinions are on transgenders playing in sports, she makes a very valid point there. These are the types of issues that are more important to MAGA Republicans, whether Donald Trump gets his face on Mount Rushmore, banning books, attacking transgenders, attacking drag queens. What they're not focused on is health care. They want to take away your Social Security. They want to take away your Medicare. But they're not focused on the really important issues facing the American people. Gun violence, health care, for example. They want to deport every single person they think might be in a gang because they're brown and they don't have the proper paperwork, so I guess they don't deserve due process.